Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at XZoneRadioTV.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerreonian intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces, like you always do. And you don't mean to be cruel, you never even knew about the heartache I've been going through. Well, I try to forget you, girl, but it's just so hard to do.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and X-Zone TV. If you'd like to give us a call, toll free, 1-800-610-7035. My email is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, this first hour of tonight's show, is Mark McCandlish. And first of all, Mark, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you having me on.
Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, for the better part of the last 30 years or so, I've worked as a conceptual artist in the defense and aerospace industries of the United States, and for a few other countries also. It's been pretty exciting. I've had an opportunity to see a lot of different weapon systems, mostly aircraft, but there have been a variety of technologies that I've been exposed to. It's been a pretty exciting gig.
Where did your interest come in as far as getting into the work you're into now? Do you have an interest in science? Do you have an interest in astronomy?
Yes. Maybe it was growing up as a military dependent and being around the military environment.
Mm-hmm.
There was always a sense that technology was sort of an integral part of day-to-day living in the military. Being on Air Force bases most of my life as a young adult and as a kid, and being exposed to that kind of thing, I think it just sort of spurred that interest on, mostly starting with things like paleontology, geology, and later astronomy, getting a telescope and looking at the sky and that kind of thing.
I understand that you also used to work for General Dynamics.
Yeah, I worked there for a couple of years there in Pomona, California. And at the time, they were working up the development program for a system called Phalanx, which is a radar-slaved gun system that was designed to protect ships in the U.S. Navy. And they were also working on a proposal for an anti-aircraft gun system mounted on a tank chassis, which was referred to as the Divisional Air Defense Tank, or DIVAD tank. So got a chance to climb all over these systems, see how they worked, and learn the technology that was involved in those kinds of things. But yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Tell me, UFOs, extraterrestrials, in your opinion, are they real?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. After some of the things that I've seen over the last 20 years or so, I don't have any doubts whatsoever.
Interesting. You said that very quick, very decisive. Yes, I have no doubt. Have you ever seen a UFO? And I'm not talking about one that is from, let's say, a secret military project. I'm talking about the kind that people say come from outer space.
Well, that's the one thing that's most difficult for anybody who sees something like this. You can recognize the strangeness and the uniqueness of the performance capabilities that you see in these aircraft.
Yes.
But it's really impossible to tell where they're from. In reality, they could all be part of some secret military development program, but some of the things that I've seen have been so obviously advanced that it would be really hard to put your finger on it and say, yeah, it looks like an Air Force bird,
All right, Mark, stand by. You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. Mark McCandlish is our special guest. www.markmccandlish.com, MarkMccandlish.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and we're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute break as we continue. Don't go away.
Nicholas P. Jennings is a lover of humanity and a seeker of truth. Using facts and not opinion, he exposes misconceptions spread by religious and political organizations. While theology, engineering, and science were his fields of academics, history, philosophy, and humanities are his fields of research. His article entitled "The Obama-Iran Nuclear Deal Must Be Stopped" exposes lies by Obama to approve a nuclear deal. This deal benefits Iran domestically and militarily, but compromises the security of the United States. The Jennings article is provided on the internet link www.rel-mar.com/NG1. That's www.rel-mar.com/NG1.
Call him Reef. Reef is your host. Reef is your guide. Are you happy? Happiness is like trying to find water in the desert.
Can you find any? Sometimes, sure, but only a few drops. God is an ocean of joy, but God is not cheap. You cannot find God in a chemical. You must attract God's attention. How? Not by living to please your senses. That is false ego. The Matrix is not real. It is a computer-enhanced hallucination. You are spirit soul, not the body. We have forgotten how splendid our home really is, the spiritual sky. For more information, visit rishasongofblue.com. That's www.reeshassongofblue.com.
Fartlets, fartlings, pongies, and honkers. They have so many names, makes you go bonkers. Rear tempest, butt bubbles, bottom burps, all aside. Why does it smell like a little rat died? Hail the fart, whenever, wherever, whoever. Its existence actually enriches our lives because it gives us those unforgettable moments that we can all recall again and again that are always good for yet another laugh. A new expose on farting. Get your copy of The Endearing Fart by Eileen Dover at www.theendearingfart.com.
Exonation, Mark McCandlish is our special guest. And Mark, does the United States government have advanced propulsion systems, perhaps some night that even get us interstellar capability?
Well, I've certainly seen plenty of evidence that they do. Some of the things that I was directly involved in were high-speed, hypersonic air breathers, more conventional. But I had an awful lot of contact with people from Lockheed and other defense contractors that indicated that we had not only a high-speed air-breathing type of vehicle that was out there, and not only being experimented with and tested, but also some that were in deployment around the world, but also a kind of field propulsion, anti-gravity, if you will, that's been on the drawing board since the late 50s. Apparently they had some breakthroughs in the early 1960s and had something working by about 1965-66.
You know, mainstream scientists scoff at the idea of off-world or alien civilizations having the ability to traverse the vast distances between stars. But is it possible, Mark? And if so, how?
Well, that's a great question, Rob. Yes, it is. And, you know, people think in terms of rocket ships here on this planet. It's what we've seen for most of the last half century. And but the real key to being able to travel those incredible distances between two stars is really dependent on being able to find the energy you're using to power your propulsion system right in the environment itself. It would be kind of like finding a way to use solar power from all the stars around you as a power source. And so that's really what this technology is based on, is using pressures, or I should say energy forms in the environment that can be converted into a propulsive force, and that's how they work. And so the real question boils down to how fast can you go with a system like that. Now, back around 1994, there was a gentleman, a scientist over in the UK by the name of Miguel Alcubierre, who wrote a paper about the theory behind a warp drive system, something like the kind of technology that was envisioned by Gene Roddenberry in his Star Trek TV series. And in fact, he was proposing that, one of the things that Einstein had always talked about was that it was really impossible to accelerate up to or beyond the speed of light, because as you do so, the mass of your vehicle increases. It increases exponentially to the point where you simply cannot have enough fuel to continue accelerating or propelling the craft forward. Well, the reason that was true, and you'll find that mass itself is a variable quantity. As you accelerate, it increases the mass of your vehicle. As you decelerate, that process reverses itself. So we know that mass is a variable effect. It's not so much a quantity. It's not like the weight of your vehicle increases. It's just that the force resisting further acceleration increases. And part of the reason for that is that there is an energy form embedded right in the fabric of space-time. The technical term is quantum zero-point fluctuations of the vacuum, otherwise known as zero-point energy. It's also been called scalar waves, longitudinal waves, psychotronic energy. You hear a lot of different terminology, but basically it's an energy form that's embedded in the environment, and it's responsible for the effect of mass. In fact, when we were going through school and studying physics and things like that in high school and other educational forums, one of the things that was never really explained, when you talk about the laws of thermodynamics, entropy being one of them, things tend to slow down because of friction and forces in the environment like gravity or wind resistance, what have you. But it was never explained to any of us why it is that the subatomic particles in the atom, like the electrons that are spinning around the nucleus of the atom, there's no indication that entropy or these frictional forces that would slow things down, there's no evidence that any of these kinds of things affect the structure of the atom. In fact, the atom itself is a perfect model of what would be called a perpetual motion device. And the reason for that is because it's drawing the same zero-point energy out of the environment. That is literally what keeps all of the structure of the atom in motion all the time, why it never slows down and never stops. Now, imagine, if you will, that you have this little device sitting in front of you on the desk that looks like a little solar system. It's a model of the atom. You have a nucleus in the center that has protons and neutrons in it, which are also spinning and turning and things like that. You have the electrons around the outside that are all moving, but if you're able to measure the mass of that atomic structure, you find that it has one value at its steady state point. It's where it's at rest, so to speak. But as you begin to move that through the environment, an environment that's extremely rich with this energy, all those components begin to spin and move faster. It's literally as though it's gathering more and more energy as it travels through the environment. It'd be the same as if you're walking slowly through a rainstorm, it's sprinkling and you get a little wet, but if you sit on the roof of a car that's moving 60 miles an hour, you get drenched, even though the dispersant or the dispersal of the raindrops is the same. And so that's basically what Einstein was saying, is as you move through the environment, you gather more energy, the components inside the atom begin to become more energized, and as a result, they exhibit a higher mass. So the propulsion systems that we're talking about are actually drawing that energy out of the environment, and energy is conserved, so to speak, because you're actually using it to create propulsive force. So the faster you go, the more energy there is available for you to continue doing this. But the end result is that the mass of your vehicle becomes less and less as you go faster and faster. And so as you approach the speed of light, you have nearly an infinite amount of energy you can draw from, where your mass is probably less than it would be in your steady state condition where it's not moving at all. So in a sense, the vehicle becomes light as a feather, and you have practically the entire power of the universe driving you, pushing you forward. So at that point, breaking the light barrier really becomes a reality.
Son of a gun. How close are we to this technology, or does it already exist?
It already exists, and when you look at what they were actually calling the early prototypes of this technology, the alien reproduction vehicle, it becomes pretty obvious that, at least to the insiders that were involved in this at Lockheed and other defense contractors, that they probably back-engineered something from a vehicle that was from another star system that crashed here on this planet. Being machines, this is the one thing that most people don't really consider. You think about any civilization that might be advanced enough to build a machine that could actually come here in the flesh. That just like our cars that are manufactured on a production line, some have flaws. Somebody might have made a mistake somewhere on the production line, and here they are, light years away from home, and they have a flat tire. And the next thing you know, one of our guys comes along and says, "Hey, I want what you've got," and they take it and try to take it apart if they can get it apart, and figure out what makes it work. And that's what the basis. That's really what back engineering is all about.
What is your opinion of the Roswell crash of 1947?
Well, from the things that I've heard within the defense and aerospace community, it really happened. There's been a lot of diversionary tactics employed by the military and the U.S. government to suggest that it was a special balloon that would send detectors aloft to see whether some of our political competitors around the globe were testing nuclear weapons and things of that nature. And another one involves some, what the military has as the kind of a crash test dummy for aircraft ejections and things like that, which they were using to account for some of the bodies back in the early 1990s, I think it was. But, I really believe that, not only did it happen, but that it's been one of probably 70 different crashes that have occurred over the last 65 to 70 years.
So tell me, why do you think the government of the United States and other governments of the world are suppressing the information and, perpetrating a conspiracy and cover-up to the citizens of the world if, in fact, these craft have visited us from other planets and that we're using the technology that was back engineered from them? Why the secrecy?
That's a great question, Rob. I have to say, as someone who had a security classification of secret for a time, both in the military and later working with a number of defense contractors, that when you've got an ace in the hole with a technology that is so incredibly advanced beyond what your contemporaries around the world are using. I mean, if you have a propulsion system that can take you from point A to point B on the globe in under 10 minutes, inside the atmosphere, not producing a sonic boom, in many cases invisible on radar, and use that propulsion system as a weapons platform, you've got something that gives you such a tremendous advantage strategically and tactically that you never want to shine the light of day on something like that, because it's obvious that once the existence of something like this is known for a fact, everyone else is going to be out there trying to figure out how you did it,
right? How
you were able to build it, what the technology is, how it works.
So basically, it's a matter of national security.
It really is. But, the flip side of all of this is that the technology that's employed in this propulsion system also happens to be one of the most efficient and one of the most, a system that would not be harmful to the environment if it was employed at a low energy level. We're not warping the fabric of space and time around the power production system. But you can produce a tremendous amount of energy with these systems. And the only downside is that you have to keep it within certain limits, because as you do so, the actual mass of the power production facility begins to become reduced. Even working in the vicinity of something like this, you'll have the sensation of being able to move more freely, more easily, but it's almost like being weightless in one sense, because you're drawing the very energy out of the environment that's responsible for your sensation of mass, your sensation of weight.
Mark, stand by. Very interesting conversation. Thanks very much for joining us here on the X-Zone. X-Zone Nation, Mark McCandlish is our special guest. His website is www.markmccandlish.com. That's MarkMccandlish. We'll be back on the other side of this news break as the X Zone continues from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
My name is Michael Telstar, Canada's leading mentalist from Toronto, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Splenda, and you're listening to my dad, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone.
This is Psychic Dorothy from St. Catharines, and you're listening to Rob McConnell.
Hello, my name is Holly Reeves, an astrologer from Astro For You, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Exonation, Mark McCandlish is our special guest. His website is www.markmccandlish.com. Mark, is it possible that some of the weaponry that you and I have been talking about for the last half hour have actually been used in conflict scenarios around the world? And is it also possible, Mark, that the majority of UFO sightings that people are reporting are actually these craft in flight?
Well, I think that there's a fair amount of evidence that there is. back in the early 1990s, at the point where we were engaged in the Persian Gulf War. I had friends whose husbands and wives and things were over in deployment in the Middle East. Was a young lady that worked at a local fast food restaurant that I frequented at the time, whose husband was a Marine on board one of the ships over in the Persian Gulf. And he would write home. Some of his letters had some things that were redacted or blacked out in the process of being sent back to the United States. But she said that he was talking about some of these strange lights in the sky that would zip across the sky and stop on a dime, or would traverse the sky, making right-angle turns in the process, never slowing down. And things that would look like stars for all intents and purposes, and then suddenly just move away at a tremendous clip. So I made a point of having a chance to talk to this lady's husband when he came back. He's a very, very nice young man. And, he said that they were seeing these things all the time, and it was obvious to the people on the ships and the people in the field that the military operations there in the Persian Gulf were being observed, and being observed very intently on a daily and nightly basis. And there were rumors, although I don't know how much credence you can give to these rumors, that some of these propulsion systems were employed in fighting the Republican Guard from Iraq in the early stages of the conflict. And I heard stories about high energy weapon systems being used to wipe out complete platoons of troops and things like that. I don't know if they're true. I imagine if any of that stuff happened, that it's so highly classified that there's just no way you'll ever know until many years in the future from now. But the other part of your question was are we really deploying technology like this? And I believe that we are. It has tremendous advantages for surveillance more than anything else. I think the thing that you have to be careful about if you're a military strategist is that if you're employing systems of this kind, you may or may not be able to use the weapons on board without actually slowing down to a point where the weapons can actually be sent out from the presence of the vehicle. When it's moving at something in excess of 9,000 miles an hour, if you toss a missile out the window, it's going to disintegrate. And so very often these things have to stop, deliver the payload, and then get going again at a very fast speed. I just think that probably more than anything else, they're being used not only to intimidate, but to surveil some of the other so-called enemies of the United States.
So do you think that these experimental craft, or these craft that are actually being used in conflicts presently, will ever be declassified?
Well, my hope is that someday they will, because at some point, these kinds of things have to be brought out into the white world, so to speak, as opposed to black, secret technologies. Not only because of the environmental concerns that we're having now because of fossil fuels and things of that nature, but because, you just can't dam up every stream and river for hydroelectric power. You can't, put miles and square miles of solar cells out in the desert. I mean, they're having a lot of controversy here in California right now because there are vast areas of the Southern California desert that a number of companies want to put up these solar energy collection sites. And, they've got everything from the desert tortoise to, the kangaroo rat that the environmentalists are worried about, their habitat being destroyed by these projects. And so sooner or later, they're going to have to at least begin to declassify some of the technology, admit that this technology exists so that, there can be a learning curve within the society so that people can start looking outside the box, as it were, and trying to figure out ways to exploit these technologies that are non-weaponized.
If this technology does exist, Mark, why isn't it being used for the space program instead of using solid rocket boosters? If the technology is there, why not start it off with the space program, it would be a lot easier to break it to the John Q. public if the public thought that NASA developed it. And this way here, the other arms of the government could actually maintain national security.
Well, I think that it is, and it has been used in part of our so-called secret space program. There seems to be some evidence that such a program may go back several decades. I remember talking to one of the other Disclosure Project witnesses back in 2001. It was a young man who said that he was brought in to repair some photographic equipment that was having some kind of a little system failure at Langley, where the CIA is based, and noticed that there were a number of diplomats from other countries that were gathered in this room looking at some photographs spread around a table, and these photographs had been taken by an early moon orbiting satellite that photographed what appeared to be fully developed bases on the backside of the moon. So I think that, even within the highest levels of the U.S. intelligence apparatus and the government, that there are organizations, agencies, if you will, that are so highly classified, even beyond that perhaps even the President of the United States doesn't know about them. But yes, I think that it has been used. I know that NASA right now has a kind of a contest going on with the invitation being for inventors and people of that nature to try and come up with ideas for creating these advanced propulsion systems. You probably heard about the Advanced Propulsion Technologies Symposium that's been put on by Mark Millis,
yes.
And I think it's Columbus, or Ohio, or Cincinnati. I'm not sure where it is exactly, but this is the problem, is because most mainstream physicists scoff at the idea of this kind of technology even being possible. That I've corresponded with a few physicists who will laugh and say, "Oh, it's not even wrong. That's simply impossible." But it's only because they're coming at the problem with all the standard texts that we're taught at the college level and beyond, as the basis for their understanding of this kind of technology. They just simply do not believe that it exists. And so as long as the population, particularly the mainstream scientific community, will not accept that you can achieve these kinds of capabilities, you're going to see a lot of resistance. It's very difficult to get funding for someone. I've had offers from some people who want to know, well, if you had the money, could you build something like this? And chances are I could probably get a pretty long ways down the road towards doing just that. I may not have all of the technical know-how or the mathematical understanding of how you would put together something like this, but I can tell you that from everything that I've gathered over the last 20 years regarding this technology, I have a pretty good idea not only what the materials usage is, what the orientation of the components would be to make a system like this work, because I've talked to so many people who've actually had hands-on experience or have parents or relatives who've had hands-on experience in working on things like this. So there's no doubt in my mind it exists. It's really just a matter of, putting together a team and a group of people that would be able to figure out all of these little questions that need to be answered on how you would do it.
So where does the government or the military keep all these super secret prototypes or super secret aircraft?
Well, with the advent of satellite surveillance on both sides of the continent, or both sides of the world, I should say, you really can't leave these things out in the open, especially at the daytime. I think this is probably one of the reasons why there are so many vehicles that are misidentified or thought of as being, triangles or UFOs or what have you. People see lights in the sky, and if it's a long ways off, it could be anything from the planet Jupiter or Venus to a shooting star. And in fact, most of these things that I've seen were operational at night, which makes it really difficult to sort of discriminate between whether or not what you're looking at is a conventional aircraft or a meteor or just, a very high-speed but very advanced conventional propulsion system. So, most of the activity that's going to happen with a system that's been developed by the military is going to occur in the dark of night, usually in the wee hours of the morning. And I would have to say that probably the most common method of storing and housing these vehicles is underground. I've talked to so many people who've seen vehicles coming and going from various locations, but if you get out a powerful telescope and put yourself up on a hill somewhere, you can't see anything on the ground. I've even talked to a lady down in New Mexico who lives not too far from Kirkland Air Force Base, one of the most highly classified installations that we know of that's pretty much out in the open. It's near Albuquerque. She has actually seen vehicles of this type emerging right out of the side of a cliff near where she was camping. And she said that for all intents and purposes, it looked like this vehicle just flowed right out of the material of the cliff itself, just like it was coming out of a big rock-colored piece of Jell-O, just coming right out of the material. And so obviously they have some way of bending space-time so that material objects are able to be penetrated, or at least you create the illusion that there's a material cliff there, when in fact it might be some kind of a holographic projection or an image that obscures a tunnel opening or something like that.
In all the years that you've been doing what you do, Mark, what has been the most amazing craft that you yourself have witnessed?
Well, it was December 13th, 1989. Well, there have been several. I think this was probably the first and most dramatic sighting that I had. Oddly, I had spent an evening at the home of someone claiming an abduction experience on the 11th of December 1989 and had some really strange things happen there. And 2 nights later, I was out for the evening with my girlfriend celebrating our anniversary, and we were sitting at a traffic light right near the Ontario airport, and that's in Southern California, not Canada, looking north to a mountain range that's just north of that community. And as we're sitting at this traffic light on a freeway overpass, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this brilliant bluish-white ball of light coming up from the southeast, traveling at a tremendous velocity. I kind of plotted the time to distance on a map, from point A to point B in, half a second. And it turned out that this thing was traveling something on the order of 9,000 miles an hour, at least relative to the ground. Had a very obvious glowing ionization trail behind it. And it came right down in front of the mountain range there, right near Mount Baldy and some of the surrounding mountains in the, I guess it's the Los Angeles mountain range. And it made a right angle turn in front of the mountains, ran parallel to the front of the mountain, so it was basically crossing in front of me, and then made another right angle turn, climbed slightly, and then it began zigzagging down through a canyon right near Mount Baldy. Now, if you take a look at Google Earth, and this is right in the vicinity of a community called Rancho Cucamonga. There really is a place called Rancho Cucamonga. And but that particular canyon moves straight north and actually comes right out of the mountain range just south of Edwards Air Force Base. So, but this entire thing that I saw was probably about 1.5 seconds long, and it traveled all that distance, and it was so fast that if you'd blinked, you would have missed it.
Mark, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, our very special guest this hour, Mark McCandlish. His website, filled with information, www.markmccandlish.com. That's MarkMccandlish.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back after this break. Don't you dare go away.
Born a Shiite Muslim and taught the Quran in his youth are some of the reasons why President Obama has an affinity for Islam and the Muslim people. His nuclear deal with Iran allows them to obtain over $150 billion to stimulate their country domestically and militarily while pursuing their objective to develop a nuclear bomb. A groundbreaking article by Nicholas Jennings titled "Obama Continues to Lie to the American People" exposes many lies Obama has made. It includes lies to the American people on the Obama-Iran nuclear deal and Benghazi. The Jennings article is provided on the internet link www.rel-mar.com/NG2. That's www.rel-mar.com/NG2.
When demystified, shamanism is an ancient science delving into the quantum level of life. Understanding and implementing basic shamanic principles can empower the individual to heal, manifest, and evolve in these rapidly changing times. Path Home Shamanic Art School is a one-of-a-kind Colorado State certified occupational school training and certifying shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also train individuals simply interested in empowering and enriching their lives through shamanism. Path Home's certification classes are in a week-long block format, enabling national and international students to participate. We also provide online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions as well. Discover all you can be. Enter the limitless world of shamanism today. For more information, visit findyourpathhome.com or call 303-775-3431.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com. Exonation, Mark McCandlish is our special guest once again. www.markmccandlish.com is his website. Mark, what else have you seen? Now you've got my curiosity up.
Well, I've actually seen a couple of occasions where the phenomenon that I observed really seemed to represent what might be described as the employment of traversable wormholes. I've seen this on several occasions, and it's a very startling kind of event. This was in June or July of 1993 in Southern California. I was coming back from an Angels baseball game. I was on Route 91, southwest of the community of Chino, and saw a brilliant flash of light in the sky, and then a glowing sphere, kind of fuzzy edges around it that got larger and larger as it was descending at about a 45-degree angle, just appeared out of nowhere. But what was really strange about that was that following directly behind it was a series of parallel gold-colored glowing lines, and they were all of the exact same length, all parallel to one another. And they were of the lines were of different weight. Some were thin, pencil-thin lines. Others were thick and brighter. And it wasn't until I really thought about it later that I realized what I was looking at was sort of, imagine if you have a tube of space-time that goes back to another point of origin out in space. And as you may remember from the Star Wars movie, as they make the jump to light speed, all of the dots that represent the stars out there start spreading out into these streaks that kind of converge on a vanishing point out in the distance. And that's really what I was looking at, but in reverse. I was looking back through the wormhole. And the reason that these lines all had a gold color to them was that the white-colored light of the stars had redshifted into more of a golden hue. But the funny thing is that the images of these stars was being carried along with the physical presence of the vehicle, and that was what was so striking. In fact, the first time I saw this, I thought, my God, there's been an airplane, a mid-air collision or explosion, and these are flaming particles of debris that are falling behind it. The fact is that they weren't flaming or trailing smoke or anything. They were all these, they looked like individual gold-colored fluorescent light tubes that were in a pattern that was fixed, and they were moving along with this thing as it descended behind a mountain in the distance. Now, more recently as a year ago, up here in Redding, California, where I live now, there have been a lot of rumors about an underground UFO base under a mountain west of Red Bluff, which is south of me, called Thompson Mountain. Talked to a lot of people who've had sightings out there, and people who said they've seen these tremendous flashes of light. And then after the flash dissipates, there'd be this little point of light there that would suddenly just shoot off like it had been fired out of a gun. And it obviously seems as though these are basically vehicles of some unknown origin that are materializing right out of the fabric of space-time. Basically, it would seem as though they're coming from a place where there's a tremendous amount of light, maybe a star system where there's a tremendous amount of illumination in the local environment. And as that portal opens up, there's this tremendous release of light from that point in the sky, and then the object zips away.
Hey, Mark, we've run out of time for tonight. Love to have you back in the near future. I do thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
Nice talking to you, Mark. Take care of yourself. Exonation, MarkMcCandlish.com is the website. That's www.markmccandlish.com. I'll be back after the news at 6 o'clock, at 6.5 minutes past the hour as we continue here in the X Zone. Don't go away.